the head of the Presidential Office, Investment and Finance Office, Investment Services, Mr. Mahmut Selim Porgalı. Welcome. And the next speaker is the founder and general manager in Genosis Technology, Mr. Ümit Yaşar Karadeniz. Welcome. And our next speaker is member of the board of directors in Leonardo, Turkey, Sergio Scodaniboya. Now I'd like to give the floor to our esteemed panelists. Esteemed participants.
Misafirler, sektörümüzün kıymetli
Distinguished representatives of our industry, I would like to greet you all wholeheartedly.
Tamamdır herhalde. Malum özellikle Ukrayna'da başlayan gerilim sonra
As you know, the tension that started in Ukraine and then the tension that was propagated to the Middle East and to the Mediterranean actually has caused a rupture in the world. And this being the case, the states have started to realign their investment services. Now we are witnessing new structures. For example, in the Silicon Valley, we have defense-oriented startups. Over the last 3 years, more than dozens of actually defense startups have been created with hundreds of billions of dollars. In Europe, all over the world, defense-oriented funds were created. So, which means that actually they started to invest in defense companies. That will be the first question, actually. Is venture capital compulsory? Because in Turkey, some success stories like Aselsan, Roketsan, all of these companies have never had a fund behind them. There has never been a solid fund structure in Turkey in this area. But what has changed and what has pushed the world to require a VC in the world? So why can't we meet today's actually needs by using the past structures? Selim Bey, let's start with you. Is VC compulsory? Why do we need it? What has changed from past to present? I'd like to greet all participants and speakers. It's really exciting to be part of this event. Turkey is going through a transformation in its defense industry, and it's a source of pride for us. This transformation is not peculiar to Turkey. As you know, all over the world, defense industry has been going through a transformation. In 2022, as you know, the war started in Ukraine between Russia, and then in Israel, Gaza, and then the ongoing war between the United States, Israel, and Iran pushed the world into a new direction. But I'd like to attract your attention to a new point. One of the reasons for increase in defense expenditures is because public funds have been directed to this area. In the European Union, for example, as part of the Investment Europe, a 3 billion euro package was declared. And in 2026 and 2027, Europe wants to create local, essential components locally. And also, Security Action for Europe has included 150 billion euro package. And Rearm Europe includes 830 billion euro package. Another important point is in the United States, the budget proposal for the United States for 2027. In 2026, it was $1 trillion, and they wanted to make an increase of 45%, and now they are increasing it to $1.45 trillion. All these figures tell us that there will be a significant increase in defense expenditures, and the pie is getting bigger for the companies, particularly for VCs, venture capitals. That's quite interesting. That's why. What's important is not only the conflicts that occurred in the past, but also the potential developments in the future. For example, potential crisis between China and Taiwan, or an expanded regional tension in the Middle East, etc. When we look at the VCs, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, we see that artificial intelligence and data center investments have increased significantly. and profit margins were quite significant and high, and actually VCs gained significant profits from it. But it seems we have reached a certain maturity there, saturation, and VCs are looking new pathways. Defense industries, and when we consider the public investments as well, now this is a significant share. Some of the, actually, it seems that they are retracting some of the funds from the $22 billion, and I hope that I believe that VCs will have a significant share in the future. Let me talk about Turkey's case briefly. Over the last 5 years, there was a transaction of $5.7 million in terms of VC, but most of this is about softwares, e-commerce platforms, and gaming. So we need instruments that will attract the attention to defense industry. This being the case, as you know, when we look at the region, what we mean by the region is that Turkey has competitors, actually, competitor countries facing Turkey, because when investors come, they get focused on a certain region and they check alternatives, for example, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, and also Gulf countries, so are some of the competitors in terms of investments. When we look at all those areas and countries, it seems Turkey has gained 10% share and has become the second biggest country that has attracted investments. Turkey has a significant potential, but we need to actually consolidate it with VCs. Thank you, Ümit Bey. My name is Ümit Yaşar Karadeniz. I'm representing the entrepreneurs side. I'm founder and general manager of Genosis Technology Company. And also I'm a founder and head of the board of the Argute company. Genosis is producing simulation artificial intelligence technologies for defense industry, and Argo-CI company is producing artificial intelligence-oriented cockpit systems used all over the world for aerospace industry. And also I have worked as part of the management of the Saha Istanbul industrial cluster. When it comes to scale up of the defense industry companies, we try to match them with investors. I believe that the most important change against 10 years ago, there were actually large investors, for example, and most of these were originating from the States. They were the big players in the defense industry. They were producing solutions. But over the last 10 years, over the last 15 years actually, startup world has become quite agile, and some significant changes have taken place, and we have seen rapid developments. It seems that actually the civilian industry actually has surpassed the defense industry. For example, NATO is opening lots of programs about dual usage because technologies in the civilian industry has surpassed the defense industry, military industry. They are trying to integrate this. And VCs in the past, over the last 10, 15 years, they have actually pushed an increase in the startups. And in the Ukrainian war, and also as we have seen in the recent Iranian war, platforms are quite valuable. But what's also interesting is actually agile components that are manufactured in a serial manner. I believe that these create a strategic advantage in wars. The initial reason is that geostrategic situation in the world has changed and the wars have come back to our agenda. That's why all over Europe they need weapons technologically. They'll also drive some lessons from the Iranian war and Ukrainian war. They need agile solutions. And secondly, the playground in the defense industry previously was composed of large players, but now we have startups developing drone technologies, AI-focused decision-making mechanisms, and all these are actually quite similar to the company profiles in which VCs work. That's why the interest in this increased. No, there are companies that are good for investments. That's why the interest has increased. Sergio?
I am Sergio Scodanibio. I represent Leonardo. That is a company that is in Turkey from 40 years, more or less. Sorry, I have a disturb in my... Hello? Okay, it's better. Now it's better. Before there was a return of the sound. Okay, very good. I have to take it. Okay, good. I was telling you that I represent Leonardo from two points of view. I'm a director of Leonardo Turkey, a premise that we have in Golbasi, close to Ankara. And on the other side, I represent the helicopter division of Leonardo in Turkey and in the region. Going back to the question, what happened in last 40, but let's talk about last 10 years, is unbelievable. If I am wrong, tell me. Yeah, there is the return of...
You can get off your... Yeah.
Is incredible. What happened, what I see in front of my eyes is a mix of the investment, economy, willing, dream, a plan from my point of view. This country is unique from my prospect. I'm watching around the world, but the vision from political and not only point of view impressed me, but not only me in Europe. In Italy, of course, we are talking a lot about it because there is a program, there is a plan, there is something that is really devoted to make fruitful the investment. Investment in terms of personnel, investment in terms of graduated people, investment in terms of talent, investment in terms, of course, of money. Money is part always of the job, but when it's a rolling, so that when you start producing and selling, then you are part of a community that is the one in defense, aerospace, security and protection. So that the Turkish company now are not competitor. Are in some sector they are absolutely in the first line in the world, and from this point of view, congratulations to their great job. And then with the other question, we will talk about some other aspect. But this is something that I need to underline responding to the question.
Teşekkür ederim. Yani özetle baktığımızda birincisi...
So to sum up, it seems that VCs will be more proactive because now there are budgets, states will make expenditures, and there are actually needs and customers. It is inevitable that investments and expenditures will increase. Secondly, there is a certain habitual defense industry manner of work, so the requirements are declared and then a very detailed descriptions are statement of work are made for the products, and then they try to find partners. So such product cycle management actually takes years, but over the last 10-15 years, startups have started to acquire rapidly. They can produce prototypes in a few months. Their cycles have become shorter and quicker, and efficiency in this area is challenging the traditional working manners. And defense industries actually is going to transition from these traditional cycles into the shorter, more active cycles used by startups. Now, there are some critical questions. I'd like to ask this question to you, Mr. Ümit Bey. What is the largest problem for a defense startup? There is, what is called the dead valley, the period that it takes until the initial contract is signed. In other industries, when startups develop their products, they can immediately, just test their products, and then rapid iterations may be used to develop their products. But in the defense industry, it may take years to sign a contract with a customer in the defense industry. So companies planning to do business in defense industry may sometimes need to be patient for a long period of time, sometimes years. So this death valley in terms of investments, because you're a founder, how do you go beyond this death valley? How do you manage this process? You have made a very good summary, actually. Defense and aerospace are quite similar industries. They are well-regulated sectors, industries. And it takes some time to accept innovation because there are risks as well. So they don't acknowledge and accept risks very rapidly. The first challenge is when they develop the products, and when they try to deliver the products to the customer, it's a problem to make the customer accept these new products. And the time it takes for innovation, normally it may take 3-4 years actually Sometimes it is longer actually. In Argo Sema company, we have witnessed this. Cycles were quite long and we needed finance when the cycle was too long. In Argos AI, we first all started with equity, then we were supported by some state mechanisms like COSGAP, SME support mechanisms. We tried our prototypes in Gazi Pasha Airport and Heathrow. We work with British Airways. We first tried the products initial as prototypes. Then after we got our initial contract, then investors started to come. The biggest problem is that for companies in the defense and aerospace companies, investor profile is very different. For example, there are many VC investing in technology. They understand the technology, but they are not familiar with the industry. That's why, well, actually being invested by a VC which is familiar with aerospace industry, it is not quite common. And now we have some global partners across the world, and we have some contacts in order to receive investments from global actors. With Chinosis, however, we followed another method. For both civilian and military defense industry, we try to develop technologies with the same backbone, common for both civilian and military. For example, simulators, AI-based simulators, that may be used in the defense industry and also in aviation sector, civilian aviation sector, and it helps us actually to shorten this cycle. So we may actually at least compensate these long periods. And second issue is finance. If you worked only in the defense industry, it takes a long time to develop the first product. But when you work in multiple industries, then you might reduce the risk to a certain extent. And you may also transfer the technology. It might be an advantage for you. So that was a method we used in Chinosis up to now. But to sum up, I may say that in technology and defense industry, as compared to a few years ago, it's now very interesting to receive investments from VCs, and the recent wars have changed the approach, but venture capitalists need to be trained. They need to be more familiar with defense and aerospace industries because these are niche sectors. I believe they need to lead VCs. They need to approach this issue not only in terms of technology, but they try to understand the dynamics in the defense aerospace industries. And that's why they should be mature and ready to invest in these areas. I believe that VCs, venture capitalists, have not fully understood these industries yet. And also we don't have adequate, sufficient numbers of VCs. I hope their numbers will increase. But to sum up, the time it takes for an initial contract in the defense industry, it is quite long as compared to other industries. So you were adopted a hybrid manner. So you develop projects not only for the defense industry, but also for the private industry, private sector to compensate the risk. But when you evaluate to compare the risks, when you work in both industries, although it increases your resilience, it might make it harder for you to focus on certain issues. So when you make an overall assessment, adopting a hybrid manner of working, which outweighs which, advantages or disadvantages? If you had the opportunity, would you abandon one industry and would you focus on one single area only, for example, only private or only defense industry? I've been involved in a technology development initiatives. I met all kinds of mistakes and errors that were possible. When you shift your focus, for example, when you try to do something technologically, then when you shift to other industries, you go bankrupt. You need to focus on something in order to develop expertise in a certain industry and develop know-how. That's why focusing on multiple areas is a big error, would be a big error for a technology company, because they will have limited resources and they need to develop expertise of domain know-how of the customer. They shouldn't be dispersed too much. But in defense and aerospace, if you are working in this area, you need to work on several pillars, because it takes very long time to develop and to accept the products. You sign a contract, it takes for you years to develop the product, and it takes years to test the products, and regulation takes years as well. Sometimes 8-10 years may be passed. So there should be some focused, one or two focused dedicated sectors. So we try to, be present in the defense industry, in private sector, but we try to develop a common backbone in terms of technology. And second point, It's not very important to be a technology company anymore. You need to incorporate this know-how into your internal structures. Because we have now colleagues who are quite familiar with this, who can give us detailed information about this, or people who were involved in defense industry areas should be part of your company, so that when you develop technological products, you talk more than technology. So yes, it is advantageous to work in several industries, but when you are dispersed too much, it might be disadvantageous, because then you would have multiple demos, actually a stereotype demo products, but that would not be matured maybe. So that's why it's not only technology that's important, but also you should have staff members who understand the know-how of that specific sectors and who develop sectors that would meet their demands. So we are not only a technology company. I believe companies should not be present in one single industry. They should develop products for several industries, but they should have capable staff members that develop expertise and know-how from these industries. That's why how they can become more long-lasting.
Something respect to what Umit Yashar is saying, I totally agree, and also because there are considerations from marketing that are important. What you call pillars. It means several domains. This means that there are the few that sometimes going up, the civil, for example, some other, the military. And inside the military, sometimes the helicopters, sometimes the submarine, sometimes the navy. What I mean, there is a balance in the life, so that having more domain or pillars, basically you have a trend. Differently, it's impossible to be part of this environment and sector. This is what I mean. And I totally agree with what you mentioned.
Thank you very much.
Teşekkür ederim. Peki,
normally when you sign a contract, in order to sign a contract, you need to sign the contract with the Ministry of Defense as a technology company. But the signing procedures of the ministries are quite complicated. So we have a second alternative with primes, meaning making this contract with big defense sector, defense industry companies. But in the future, a company which will create a new object, a new product for the future, an innovative product in the future, they can work with this prime company. But what is the best strategy for the small company? Shall we sign separate contracts with the prime companies, or we will have to push the prime companies to change themselves? This is a very important topic. What is important in a startup? It's to survive. You can have a very good product, but you need to have more investment. You have the idea, you have the product. In 5 years' time, when the market needs this product, you have already died. So in Turkey, we have a lot of companies like that. They closed the company, and the need in the market appeared 5 years later. So it's very important to seize each and every opportunities. Therefore, startups are obliged to work with primes. In the entire world, a startup cannot produce focusing on profits. They need to have huge technological and engineering capacities. In addition to that, there are small teams, very agile teams with 10 or 15 people, so you can work with them. These agile teams can very quickly develop new products in 2 years, 3 years' time. And you can produce a prototype, you can propose this product, but we need small structures as well, because these prime structures, these big structures, they cannot act in an agile way. This is why we need these startups in these technology companies. What we see today is that when we are focusing on development of products, we are progressing ourselves. But that prime companies, they are not making work their technology and innovation muscles. So in that area, startups can intervene and can contribute. For instance, we developed AI, and we can integrate this AI in the products of prime companies, and we will contribute to the work of the prime. What is important is to survive, but what we see right now is that startups have a completely different structure. So if you have a product objective as a startup, you can ask rapidly, swiftly. Therefore, even some public administrations may choose the startup instead of the primes. But on the other hand, I think that the right strategy is to work with the primes because the main aim of the startups is to survive. What I see, when you are identifying your strategy, you need to choose the way that will make you survive. This is what you are obliged to choose, because practically it's very difficult to find the necessary funds, financing, and it's difficult to sign big contracts. Therefore, in order to survive, entrepreneurs are using these strategies with the prime companies. So we will then try to attract investors. There might be investors, foreign investors. When you find an international investors, when there are limitations in terms of exportation, what would be the consequence of these limitations on you? Is it an inconvenience? Is it a disadvantage for you? And how you are willing to deal with that situation? Regarding international investment, I would like to bring my point of view from Turkey. Right now in Turkey, we are very successful. This is why we could organize this exposition, this fair in Istanbul. We are very agile, and we developed very agile products. We developed very good platforms. In the world of investment, we did not went into the lower levels, layers of the sector, of the market. We need to develop this part as well. We need to use the scale-up companies, especially startups, needs to find a way to join the international investment, foreign investment. Maybe the public authorities can help them to create these platforms. One of the most important topic is the obstacles that we can see in this market. We are producing technology. So the data that you have, the barriers that you have between your technology and the market, it is very important to understand all these things in order to not have later on a problem of quota in terms of exportations. How much we will produce, what is the data that we have, how much we need to export to not have a problem. So it is outside of the business development or engineering area. So in that area, I prefer to work with experts. I'm not an expert in that issue. Currently, foreign investors, maybe in the future they will bring something, they will be important, but right now there is no foreign investor. We do not have qualified foreign investor in our sector. We do not have ecosystem like the ecosystem of Silicon Valley that can enable us to complete our cycle and to help us reach international markets. This is not the case. They should first come, and then in terms of regulation with the public authorities, they will better understand the situation, and I believe that we will overcome these barriers, these obstacles in the future. Thank you very much. The problems that our entrepreneurs in that area are facing in Turkey are very similar to those of the entire world. Thank you very much for your contribution. I would like to turn to Mr. Selim right now. From the perspective of an entrepreneur, we heard the difficulties. Now I would like to hear the perspective of the state authorities, of the public, where we are at that point as Turkey. If we take the point of view of the investor, why the investor should choose Turkey? Why the investor should come to Turkey? How would you answer that question? I think that the dynamics are quite different in the defense sector. In the latest years, we have this concept of resilience. The resilience concept is very important because we have a lot of fragilities in that area. In the last 20 years, every year we grow 5%. This is the growth of our economy, and the investors are very important. We have a strong economy in an international environment where there are a lot of uncertainties. It is important to have this strong sector. We have a lot of opportunities, but we do not manage to get the full potential of these opportunities. We need very qualified employees. Another very important point is that our geopolitical location is quite specific. We have agreements with the European Union. We have free trade agreements with European Union, so we have access to a huge market starting from Turkey. So the investor who comes to Turkey knows that in that region, there is a huge potential in terms of access to markets. So these are the main sources of motivation of the investors. If we take once again the point of view of the investors are worried regarding the difficulty of synchronizing their work with public authorities. There are a lot of barriers. They don't know whether they will have the counterparts on the field, and sometimes they retract their offer, they change their mind, and they decide to not invest in Turkey. Would it be possible, or is there a structure in Turkey, one single entry point that investors can have as counterparts? In the past, the office of the presidency of the Republic was doing this job. When the investor comes to Turkey, they could receive general information. It was like an interface. Local investors, they know very well which administration is doing what. They could get access to the right knowledge and right information. But for a foreign investor, indeed, there are a lot of different administration, authorities, entities in Turkey. We organized an event with the presidency of the Republic. We decided in that meeting that we will create a one-stop shop. We will create this official one-stop shop, and certain investors who wants to invest more than some determined amount, they could benefit from this one-stop shop. They will have some subvention, and they will have some incitations, and they will have a special connection, access to the authorities. As such, the investor will come to Turkey, will create his company and start working in a shorter time. This is our aim. There are also other specificities of this new project of the Presidency of the Republic. I would like to mention some of them as it is related to the defense sector. First of all, there will be some advantages in terms of company taxes for the investors. This tax is 25%. But for exporters, 14%, and for producer and exportators, this tax will be 13%. So if you produce and you export, you will have only 9% of tax to pay. In terms of transit trade, there are also some advantages in Turkey. We have 100% tax advantage if you are located in Istanbul Finance Center. If you are outside of the Istanbul Finance Center, you can have 95% of exemption on company taxes, especially for software, for architectural work. These companies who have an exportation activity, they will have 100% exemption on the taxes. We have also some update. There is the possibility to create a company online, digitally. So all the management of the company will be done online. We have the ESOPs as well. The employees will have the possibility to contribute to the capital of the company. This is something that we would like to encourage. We have some economies made, savings made by a household, and these savings should be also used, channeled to our sector through these initiatives. We will have also some advantages in terms of taxes in the defense sector. That is great. That is magnificent. So the Turkish state will continue very quickly with quick steps to support the investors and the producers. Turkey is one of the few countries that are quickly putting into place some new regulation. This is true. Regulation is very, very important. In the start-ups, you need to give them some shares in the business schedule. We have official background to that right now. Let's say you have a startup in Turkey. They are very successful, but they are leaving Turkey. To keep them here, you need to give them company share options, and also I think that these measures will contribute enormously and will be an advantage for the startups. Right now, I would like to turn to Sergio. Leonardo is the company that knows better Turkey. Especially, it started with attack helicopters. It was a strategical cooperation, and then you started a cooperation with Baykar. You started with attack, and now you have a collaboration with Baykar. This experience of attack, what did you learn from attack, and how the attack experience helped you to build the experience with Baykar? And how do you think that this cooperation will evolve in the future between Leonardo and Turkey?
First, talking about the attack helicopter is an experience that we're talking about a different world. It started in 2005 and the contract was signed in 2007. We're talking to prehistory because it's only 20 years ago, but it seems 50 years ago for what happened in the world, in this world. But the experience is amazing because we start from scratch. What I mean, at that time, Turkey, sorry if I say this, but was not mature in terms of defense and security. They have their good company and they're good, but TAI was a child company. It was 30 years old at the time. and they really know that they need to grow, so that the government was investing together with TAI in order to let them know, and we know perfectly. So that someone in Italy had a good idea. At that time, there was the government of Berlusconi. They had a good idea to use a platform that we had in Italy. It's called Mangusta, in order to be used to start from something physically already done. And this was a great step to put together Leonardo, at the time Finmeccanica or Augusta Westland people, together with Turkish Aerospace people, to grow daily, traveling continuously from the north of Italy, where is Augusta Westland, with Ankara, where is the area of Kazan, the area of Turkish Aerospace. So that we did a job between the engineering, putting together to draw and to spend time during the night and correct each other, so that it was also a training of the Turkish people from the Augusta Western expert that went together with the construction of the helicopter and with the tentative. How many failed we had? So many. It was an investment, and it was to be done because, however, Augusta Westland is a 120 years old company, so that when there is a project to do an helicopter, we will arrive. No way. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of investment. It's a matter of technology. It's a matter of funds. It's a matter of all the elements needed. So that this experience is unique, and for me is completely different from the actual one that we have with Baykar. First, because Baykar is an amazing company that is still big company, very good company, that decided to enter in Europe, and they did it through Italy and through Piaggio and Leonardo. There are a couple of business for this. I think they did a good choice. I also support for this, of course. And so that now we're talking about two companies that they are bravo to do products. They will merge together to do other version probably, or other solution in terms of unmanned, but we are evaluating a lot of business to do together. And meanwhile, they bought an Italian company in order to produce their part of their activity and to be more present in Europe. So that different experience. Of course, both of those are important, but it's difficult to compare.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Ben teşekkürler.
Thank you very much. The cooperation that you have with Baykar, when we think about your cooperation with Baykar, is it an exception for you, or do you think that this experience is something that can be reiterated? Is it possible to establish a model based on this experience with Baykar?
I have the idea that this is single for the case that it opened the door to Europe. Okay, someone else will copy. Then if it is with Italy or with France or with Germany, it's not a matter, let me say. We are Europe with our friction inside, but we are Europe, however, unified. And so that from this point of view, I think that this is a single activity, well done with that specific scope. But in terms of model, will be copied because, of course, I think that Europe, from some point of view, is the whole continent, so that we have a lot of good engineering, good technologies, good IPR, good, but we don't have this friction around like Turkey has. You are in front, we are in front. I live here, so that we are in front of a scenario that is around Turkey so warm, to more than warm, war. So that this means that we have to pay attention. We are focused on that, and we need to grow. We need to grow in order to protect, to make secure the world. So that in Turkey, I feel the hungry, the need, and the willing, also for young generation. When you are talking about the new company, the startup, and so on, this is what I see. After that, a lot of those for me are nothing. What I mean, they are promote themselves, and they don't have anything. So that from the other side, I need to put my point of view about what you say. Please, if you have something to say, welcome, but differently. Don't waste your time, because in this sector we need serious persons and serious activity in order to grow all together. The sector is amazing if we grow together and not saying, this is my little company, I know everything and I can do everything. This is the style sometimes, no? Yeah. They introduce each other, say, I can do everything for you. What does it mean? What does it mean? To do a single piece, you need technology, you need certification, you need qualification. Is a long story, so that every investment, as you say, needs a lot of time to be realized. This is the reason why Leonardo, for example, decided from so many years that 14% of the revenues every year from 20 years, more or less, is invested in research and development. This is a good step. It means solidity. But of course, we have the funds, we have Italian and not only foreign funds that support us a lot, but because they believe in the project, so that they impact also in our balance sheet and they enter in some decision in order to grow together in a plan that is 20 years plan. And there's nothing to do. This is the style that we have. And I'm so proud to work with Leonardo because it means solidity. And also under the period of COVID, for 2-3 years we were blocked, but Leonardo continued to work because the production has never been stopped. And this is a good step that I wish also for your good company.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much. 14% of the revenue is dedicated to research and development, and you are collaborating with a lot of startups. You started to work with Baykar, and currently, based on the current geopolitical situation, your collaboration with Baykar will grow further. We believe in it. From that perspective, in terms of the drones and helicopters, you did already these two products. What are now the priority for you? What kind of company you need to see in Turkey to produce what, to further collaborate and cooperate with them? On what domain?
However, we are constantly working with Turkish Aerospace, with Avelsan, with Aselsan, with Roketsan, with all the foundation company we are participating. We have an activity also with Leonardo Turkey that is, of course, a little company with 100 engineers, but however is active in the country because it's a Turkish company. It's 100% of Leonardo, but it's a Turkish company based in Golbasi, as I told you before. So that the collaboration with the main company for us is the most important thing. And I used to say also that we are partnership quite. I cannot say technically this word, but with SSB, we're working constantly with the government, so that the feeling, when you say which is your job, I'm in Turkey through Leonardo to support the Turkish government to grow and to participate to the sector.
Buyurun Ümit Bey.
Ben de İtalya ile ilgili bir küçük bir ekleme yapmak.
I would like to add something regarding Italy. In addition to Baykar, Aerospace created its system in the airport. We had at the airport of Roma. So this is a technological intervention. It was one of the chosen company. They said that we need to create this system there. We are signing the contract and we will use the AI technology in the Roma airport. This is a 4-year period. This is a quite long cycle, but we have such a collaboration with Italy. Thank you very much.
Soruları almadan önce son bir soru sormak istiyorum.
Before getting the questions, let me ask one final question, and I'll request you to answer shortly, briefly. In order for the defense industry to develop, there are 3 main issues: technology, humans, and capital. Particularly in terms of humans and capital, actually we are more talking about investments in this panel. Which is more important? Is it capital or human resources? Selim Bey. Thank you. Well, I believe that all the organization we are having now gives the answer to this question. We have human resources and we have matured the technology to a certain point, but the limitation for us is actually capital. We have already talked about it, particularly for the defense industry. It needs to be, there needs to be a certain share from the public funds, and also there needs to be a certain share for VCs, venture capital. Yes, they need to be used. But in order to mobilize venture capital, you need to make very correct decisions. In which areas? Maybe dual usage may be possible. Then VCs may be possible in areas where dual usage is possible, actually. That might be critical. So capital investments would be critical for us in the forthcoming period. Ümit Bey? There is something very clear. I am talking as an investor, actually, not as an entrepreneur. When you look at things, first of all, you try to see if you have a good team. Are there good talents? Okay. There might be a good, interesting idea. Okay. I believe the most critical issue is the capable human resources and to train them. But not only in one single actual domain, because everything is intertwined now. We need to train people with hybrid skills, hybrid talents. I believe the most critical issue is human resources, but we need well-organized, agile team of human resources who can understand not only their specific domain, but also other areas and domains as well. Finance can always be found somewhere.
Let me be chill. The most critical is human from my point of view, but the most important is capital, because if you don't have capital, you cannot survive in this sector. But I want to bring the example of my country, more or less. I don't know if it is good or wrong, but it's clear that during the years, during the last decades, there were a period in which the investment was focused on the infrastructures. After that, a period in which the investment was on defense, a period in which was focused on the transportation. What I mean, there were decisions that I like at that time. I don't like now the effort. I can see that there has not been done a good reparation, restructuring of some of those. But that system creates a concentration of capital for that sector, and not a waste going everywhere. That for defense is not dramatic, but it's not very focused, because defense sector absorbs a lot of money, because we are talking about something that is by definition globalized. As Americans did, what they did in the past is to be everywhere with their product, with their system, and this is the discussion that they have with everybody in the world.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much. We have actual extra confidence in human resources. Maybe the shortage of capital is more evident for the case of Turkey, maybe. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, if you have questions from the participants, you may get them.
Sorusu olan var mı acaba?
Do our esteemed participants have any questions? It seems no. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. I'd like to thank our distinguished moderator and panelists. And to thank them, I would like to invite Vice Secretary General of Saha Istanbul Industrial Cluster to present a token of appreciation to our panelists. Then we'll have a family photo.